Story 1. Wife and I were dead broke when we got married. We stopped in Vegas on the drive home for 2 nights of cheap fun. Had about $50 to gamble, and were playing cheap blackjack and roulette. After sitting at the table a while with the same group of people, one guy was super drunk, but up like 20K. He kept handing out black chips to get everyone to stay at the table and play with him because we were all lucky. After a few hours, he wanted to take the whole table to eat at Gallagher's Steakhouse in New York, New York. We ended up going with him, the only ones, mainly because we felt bad that people kept telling him no, and talking for the next couple hours while he sobered up and learned all about his life. He was genuinely an interesting dude. Everything we ordered, he ordered another for us to take with us back to our room. He got up to go to the bathroom and was gone for like 20 minutes. I started to freak out a little bit, but he came back and paid for everything, about $1,000. And we parted ways with a good story and a couple $100 more than we came with. Tame by most Vegas story standards, but we still laugh about it 15 years later. Mike the plumber from California, you are a good dude. Story 2. Not as crazy as many of the others on here, but when I was 21, my parents took me to Vegas with them, as I was going through some pretty rough times. I had brought around $300 to play with for the weekend, which was pretty much everything I had saved at the time. Wasn't too responsible back then. I forget which casino we were playing at, but I had lost about $200 within the first couple hours on dollar slots. My machine was doing terribly, and Dad was playing on the opposite side of me and doing fairly well. He notices I'm getting bummed and tells me to hop on his machine, that it's been hitting pretty good, and I might do better on it. I take over and he sits down next to me. Third spin in, I hit $1,500 hand-pay jackpot. Blew my mind. The bells were ringing and we were jumping up and down. I got a couple drinks while we waited for the attendant, and we had a blast the rest of the trip. So grateful for my parents, and especially my dad for giving up that jackpot to me. Maybe not too crazy, but for me, it was absolutely insane. Story 3. Saw some kids just coming from the pool in their swim trunks, and they roll up to my craps table. They are clearly 21, and it's their first time in Vegas. It's during the day, and it's only a $10 table. The table workers are helping the kids because they don't understand the game. One of the guys just keeps betting the pass line and nothing else. On the other end of the table, there's a guy next to me who has maybe 30K on the table at any given time. Had around 400K in chips in front of him. The pass line guy gets his chance to roll. He rolls for around an hour. I made 6K. I'm trying to keep track of the guy next to me, but I'm also keeping up with my own bets. He is easily making $3 to $4 million. Pit bosses kept coming over. It was nuts. The entire time, the swimsuit kids have no idea what they're doing is so rare. The kid only bets the 10 passes every time, makes less than $100. The kid finally craps out and the guy next to me cashes out. So do I. I tip the kid 100 and the table 100. The high roller flips the kid a 10,000 chip and walks away. He's gone by the next time they even realize what has happened, and it's getting explained to them by the table workers. They lose their shit and go nuts. Great day. Story 4. Stopped in Vegas for lunch. Walked over because I had never been inside the Paris Hotel before. Looked around a little, walked over to the casino, saw this enormous slot machine, like the size of a car, played the cash I had in my pocket, $5, and won $10,000. Left after they paid out. Went to the airport and was talking to a guy waiting for our plane, and he said, "Man, I just walked into a circus, played a single slot machine and won $10,000. I hadn't told him anything about my winnings. I asked him if he had been in town for a while, and he said, "I stopped for breakfast and a friend was coming to pick me up. I walked over to the circus because I had never been there and played with the cash I had." I thought I was dreaming, but I was not. I was too freaked out to say anything. I just said, "Man, that's wild." And he said, "Dude, I know. I'm not telling anyone." So I stayed silent. Never saw him again after we boarded. Still not sure to this day if the Matrix glitched or what. Nothing weird happened with money, but that memory still gives me chills to this day. Story 5. Drove to Vegas on a whim with some college friends while at school in LA. We got there around 6 a.m., having left in the middle of the night. Only place with a room available on the sooner side was Excalibur, so we crammed 5 of us in there. I had $300 total in cash. While we were at lunch, I pulled a Clark Griswold and said I'm going to the bathroom. But really, I needed to get my bankroll on the up and up, so I went to play roulette. Lost my entire $300 in a few spins. Now I have no money, and the trip has barely started. We go out for the night, and I have to just follow them having a good time playing around town while I watch. Until my friend says he'll pay me $100 if I jump in the Bellagio fountain. I agree and hop over the faux marble railing and quickly climb out. I don't know if you've been to Vegas, but being soaking wet is not the best look there. Either way, we all go grab some drinks while I dry off. I take that $100 and put it in a slot machine. A few spins in, I hit a $280 payout. Then my buddy says he wants to teach me craps, so we buy in for $200 each, and I roll every number multiple times. Now I have about $800 in my pocket. After more shots, my friends decide to get a bottle of tequila because it's cheaper, and we get wasted. I venture off on my own and end up at a poker table at Caesar's Palace. I have no memories of the poker game, except being wet and having pocket queens while a giant pile of chips is pushed to me. The rest was a blackout. Then I get multiple phone calls that I need to get back to Excalibur immediately. Turns out the guy who gave me the $100 to jump in the fountain got so drunk, he followed a cocktail waitress into the alcove where they made drinks and ended up in the main kitchen of a restaurant. He decided to make his own quesadilla and stole a 24-pack of Red Bulls before security finally got him. They let him eat his quesadilla, but made us take him back to the room and go to bed. We all passed out. The next morning, I had $3,000 of Caesar's chips in my pocket, along with a few crumpled up hundreds and a receipt for spaghetti and meatballs from a food court. So glad I ate something. Maybe not the craziest thing ever, but I'm glad I jumped in that fountain. My friends took a photo that I am trying to find, but it was like 4 iPhones ago. Story 6. Was staying at a Hooters hotel for a bachelor party with 9 other guys. We partied hard and gambled, all that fun stuff. But last night, 3 days before the wedding, someone opened the fire hose in the hallways and turned it on as a joke. It came out like a rocket, and they scattered. It flooded the whole floor and caused $50,000 in damage. All 10 of us were arrested, but the next day, they watched the cameras, and it was found out that it was the best man and groom that actually did it. We were all released except for them. They stayed in jail for a week and needed to be sent $50,000 from their families. The wedding was canceled and never rescheduled. The groom also blamed the best man, and they never spoke again. Story 7. I lived in Las Vegas for 10 years during the 90s, while I was in my 20s. I was 21, and my best friend came to visit me to celebrate. I picked him up at McCarran from an American West red-eye. We partake in some recreational festivities as we head to Caesars and get there around 1:30 a.m. It was a Monday or Tuesday, so Caesars was pretty quiet at the time, so we looked for a lounge where we could grab a cocktail and listen to a band. The lounge we found had a total of 5 people, including us, listening to a lounge act. After 10 or 15 minutes, the band takes a break. But as they do, a guy from the audience walks up to talk to them. The guy is in a t-shirt and blue blazer and wearing a captain's hat. As one does. He's talking to the lead singer-guitarist for a minute, when suddenly the singer-guitarist takes off the guitar and hands it to the captain, who proceeds to get up on stage and put the guitar strap on. My friend and I are very intrigued at this point, but also realize that it's just us and the captain's friend sitting a few tables over. Lo and behold, the guy starts playing, and it's Joe Walsh. He plays a 7-minute version of Personal Manager by Albert King. A minute into the song, his friend comes and sits at our table and gets the 3 of us drinks. His friend was Don Novello, who played Father Guido Sarducci on SNL. After Joe finished, he came to our table, stuck out his hand, and said, "Hi, I'm Joe." The 4 of us sat there until 4 a.m., and got blind drunk and laughed our asses off. One of the greatest nights of my life. Story 8. I flew in to meet up with a friend to see someone do stand-up. I'm not a gambler and have never been to Vegas, but everyone was telling me to stay in a decent casino hotel because the food and amenities are better. So I chose the Venetian. The night I flew in, I grabbed a drink from one of the bars and just took a walk around. Within literally 5 minutes, I see someone right on the floor at a slot machine while they're still playing, just hanging out, letting her rip. But that was nothing. The next day, I was leaving my room, and I heard a couple having a heated argument, full on screaming. I turn the corner and see a guy with his wife and 3 kids. They look like tourists, younger and well dressed. She's screaming and crying that he drained their entire bank account, and he's standing there screaming back, "You f***ing brought me here." The kids were crying. Everyone was crying. Then she starts sobbing, telling the kids they can't afford their trip to Disney. He just stormed off and shot me a nasty glance as he passed me. It was like something out of a movie. Not as bad as some of the shit I've seen in here, but that definitely ruined my trip. Story 9. Not that crazy, just kind of surreal. Around 2000, we were in Vegas with a group of guys. We were hanging out at some club with a couple of girls that my friends had met earlier in the day and met us out. They were cool, pretty good looking, but not like super flashy, everybody look at me types. More Midwestern girls next door than LA, New York video vixens. There was some commotion starting at kind of a side entrance to the club, and somebody said that P. Diddy had just come into the club with his entourage. One of the girls we were hanging out with just said, "Oh, sweet, I know him," or something like that. Of course, we were like, "Sure you do. Random white girl at a club knows P. Diddy." But sure enough, she sees him through the crowd, yells, "Sean!" and runs right up to him for a big hug. Needless to say, the girls immediately ditched us to head to the VIP room with P. Diddy, or wherever he was headed. It was just so unexpected. We just all looked at each other like, did that really just happen? Story 10. I went to Vegas with my mom when I was 20. We stayed at the Frontier. After getting checked in and situated, we decided to go down and look around at the casino before grabbing something to eat at the buffet. The roulette table catches her eye, so she sits down. I'm standing behind her and I tell her to bet black. After it hits, I tell her to play 20, and it hits again. At that moment, the dealer asks me for my ID. I explained I'm not 21 and I was just there with my mom. That's when he explained I couldn't be in the casino if I wasn't 21. Back in my room, the idea was hatched to use a pencil eraser to change my month to a month that would make it appear I was 21. A few moments later, I'm legal and ready to party in Vegas. The ID worked at all of the casinos, and I even received a few belated birthday wishes. We found ourselves at the Luxor playing nickel slots when a friendly woman started some small talk with me. After a few minutes, I learned she was married, staying at that hotel, and her husband was at the other end of the strip for a few hours at a show. I wasn't picking up what she was putting down until she cut to the chase and just asked me. This wasn't something I was interested in getting involved with, so I leaned back and told my mom I was out of nickels and if she could give me $20. When I turned back around, the nice married lady had vanished like a ninja. Later that week, I decided I wanted to go see a show at the Rio. My mom didn't want to go, so I got one ticket. I showed up early and sat at the bar playing video poker. Drinks for the show were buy one get one, so I bought 2 Coronas and carried my 4 drinks in. My table was a small round table with a man and a woman already seated there. It wasn't the same woman, sorry to disappoint. We all engaged in small talk. They said they didn't know each other, so it's just a table of 3 strangers. Or so I thought. 2 beers in, I have to use the bathroom. During the show, the photographer came around, so I took a picture alone. They took one together, which I found odd, but whatever. I don't recall exactly what they said, but it instantly made me realize they knew each other. They said they didn't know me, so they said they didn't know each other. I didn't care if they knew each other or not, but okay, I didn't really care about their little lie. When the photographer came back around to sell the pictures, she didn't take credit, so I left to go to the ATM. When I got back, all the lights were on and the place was pretty empty. Wanting the picture, I went up on stage and started to walk backstage when a performer stopped me. After explaining I wanted the picture, she went back and came out with my photo. As I'm walking back to my hotel, I notice something is wrong. It feels like I'm completely drunk, but that couldn't be. I only drank 3 of the 4, and I had the 4th in my hand still. I tried to walk in a straight line towards the giant lobster poster on the bus stop, but I couldn't. My head was still there, but my body was not responding like I wanted it to. After almost falling multiple times, I finally managed to get back to my room, where I proceeded to get sick, pass out, and to this day, I believe that couple drugged me when I went to the bathroom. That was my week in Vegas, and I can't wait to go back. Story 11. My girlfriend and I went to our hotel bar to have a drink last night. We were wearing PJ shorts and t-shirts, just a casual last drink. At the bar, we struck up a conversation with a few guys talking about getting off work from Tao's Kitchen. After some casual conversation, I asked if they had a joint on them, pre-legalization in Vegas. They said not on them, but if we wanted to have a couple more drinks, we could head to one of their houses. We were 21 and dumb, and thought it was a great idea. Me and my girlfriend proceeded to get in one guy's car, 2 guys in it with us. The others followed in their own vehicles. We drive a solid 20 minutes off the strip. My girlfriend and I were laughing, saying we were pulling our hair out and hiding it and putting our handprints everywhere in the event that we were murdered. A joke, but also, it could happen. We get to this guy's mom's garage and proceed to have a couple more drinks, smoke a few joints, all laughing and listening to music. One guy rode a motorcycle, and I had never been on a bike. Also thought he was cute. He hadn't been drinking. I asked him if he'd take me for a ride, and he said for sure, gave me the helmet, and took me on a 15-minute ride on some random Vegas streets. It was so fast, but so fun. Then I had a moment of, oh shit, I just left my best friend with 5 random dudes, and told the guy we had to go back. We did, and my girlfriend was fine. After probably an hour, we asked to be taken back, and one guy ordered a cab for us, and they gave the driver $50 to take us back. My girlfriend and I had been Snapchatting friends back home, and we woke up to a million "Are you alive?" messages the next day. It was a fun last night for my girlfriend and I, and we laugh about it all these years later. Also, we know it could have gone very bad, and we're lucky they were actually decent guys. Fun times in Vegas. Story 12. There's this 90-plus-year-old woman sitting in a wheelchair playing on a slot machine. She's got the oxygen tank and the oxygen mask on. A family member wheeled her up to the machine and walked away. She's putting coins in the machine, one at a time, and pulling the handle each time. But then she hits the big jackpot. Bells are going off. Sirens are going off. Flashing lights everywhere. The whole room knows something big just happened. Family comes rushing over. Security comes over. Tons of staff come over. There's a crowd forming. There's paperwork being produced, forms to fill out. The family takes care of all of this. During all this commotion, the old lady pushes herself back from the machine, wheels over to the very next machine, and starts putting coins in again. She doesn't care that she won. She just enjoys playing. Story 13. Landed at 3 p.m. for client meetings the next day. Had a report due to the client by 9 p.m. that night. Worked for hours in my room, and decided I needed a beer or 3 to finish the report. Card reader is down at my hotel, so I walk to a liquor store. I grab a 6-pack, pay, and walk out the door. A girl approaches me and asks the time. I keep walking. She chases after me and asks the time again. I turn and say, late, and take a few steps. She runs ahead of me and stops me. I'm thinking I'm about to get assaulted. I look at her face and can tell she's been crying. Her, do you want to go on a date? Me, what? You're like 12. And then I walk away. After 20 or so steps, I looked back, and she was crying. I also see some sketchy-ass dudes around the corner of the liquor store keeping an eye on her. I often think back to what I said, and if I could have done something.